Coming up, low-income families under extreme pressure to find a place to live, a fresh look at what to do with the old transit centre, is future development at Deebing Creek at an impasse, new schools open, and no sign of an immediate solution to Ipswich Central's bridge traffic jam. Ipswich MP Jennifer Howard joins the show. It's Wednesday, February 1, 2023, and I'm Alan Roebuck. Welcome to Ipswich Today, which acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which it is produced and pays respects to elders past, present and emerging. This podcast is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. Queensland state elections are now held on a set date every 4 years, with the next being on October 26, 2024. There are plenty of statewide issues to talk about, but in this episode, it's all local. Thank you for speaking with Ipswich Today, Jennifer Howard.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Just
like that, January is at an end and 8 years since you were elected. Where did that time go to? What are your priorities for Ipswich in 2023?
It's unbelievable. 8 years has flown by. It's sort of a time for reflection, really, too, on, my wish list over those years and what we've been able to achieve. And we've been able to do some pretty fabulous stuff here in the last 8 years. On a day like we're experiencing today, where the weather's incredibly warm, it's good to know that all of our school kids are sitting in air-conditioned classrooms. That's something that's always been a priority for me here in Ipswich, because, as you know, we had the Cooler Schools program that covered the north of Queensland. But we know in Ipswich that it gets quite a lot hotter here than many of those places, even on the coast. But in terms of the future, we've always had to fight for our fair share out here, and I've got quite a few projects that I'm, taking into this year and beyond.
I'm guessing your list must include the future of the old transit centre. It's sitting there looking a bit forlorn, but you have been pushing a number of reuses for it. What do they include?
Yes. Yeah, well, look, the council have been working with me as well on what sort of ideas that the community might have for the site of the transit centre. Most people would know that it floods, which is one of the major problems with the site. So, there have been some sort of creative thinking going into it. To date, there's nothing that anyone's been able to sort of come up with that's concrete. So, my goal and my conversations with the minister have been around filling it in and creating some green space for the growing number of workers in the Ipswich CBD.
That is a fresh idea, because we all know that a bit of vegetation helps keep the air a little bit cooler, and it's a thing that's happening in cities all over the world.
It will, and Alan, it's, what I like about the idea is that it creates a place for people to go and see the river. We sort of keep turning our back on the river, and I think it's really nice to have a place where people can go and see our beautiful river.
Let's move on to a couple of local issues which are not just unique to Ipswich. One of those is the extremely low availability of rental properties, and this was highlighted in my chat last week with Citizen of the Year Donna Kavanagh, who does a lot of charity work in that area. The surge in weekly rents is meaning more people without a roof over their heads, and being homeless was once something we associated with big cities, and we're seeing evidence of this in Ipswich. What should be done that isn't happening now to create more housing, especially for low-income families?
Yeah, well, it's a really poignant issue locally, right across the sector, and we've created 241 social housing, residences since 2015. When we were elected, which is significant. And that's just in the Ipswich region. We've got another 166 homes coming on board by the 30th of June 2025. And that's through a planned investment of $43.7 million that we have sort of put forward. During COVID, obviously we saw, added pressures on these sectors, and now we've seen, house prices skyrocket, a really low rental availability locally. So we've been working with our charities and our homelessness services locally, and we've just in this area alone, we've committed $5.1 million to help deliver specialist homelessness services. It's so nuanced, the area. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is I was actually able to go to the Housing Summit that the government held in October 2022. It was a fantastic event. We released 55 actions as a result of that and backed it in by $56 million in funding. We've doubled our housing investment fund. So we will see a flow-on effect from this investment and from these sort of creative thinkers that we've gotten in the room in moving forward. I heard on the news this morning that a council in central northern Queensland, are sort of auctioning off bits of land and giving incentives to people to build on it. There's lots of ideas that we can come up with when we all work together.
Now you've mentioned that brings to mind what happened in Quilpie. They're doing a similar thing to get people to move to town and build houses. Probably not all councils can do that, but
not all. No,
that's another angle.
Yeah. But we just all need to think differently about it, and that that sort of means every single one of us. I think that people have every reason to be optimistic about the future when we're seeing really social and affordable homes, the stock increase dramatically.
Another sensitive issue carrying over from last year is the ongoing controversy over the proposed development at Deebing Heights, or around Deebing Creek to be more precise. Several allegations from protesters led by some First Nations families. These allegations include unmarked graves located outside the preserved cemetery. Are you directly involved in these negotiations?
No, I'm not, and neither should I be. Obviously, as the local member, I stay in touch with all of the stakeholders, and I take my direction from the lawful native title claimants on that site. Those people, many of those people in that group are known to Ipswich leaders for the good work they've been doing in the community for decades. And I work with those people regularly, not just on this issue, but on other issues as well. And they've developed a cultural heritage management plan that, has worked very well. It's been developed. It's been a lot of emotion for those people, dealing in sort of settling on the cultural heritage management plan. I won't go into detail because it's sharing some of their stories, but I guess, suffice to say, it's not been an easy process for them, but they're happy with the outcome. They're satisfied with the outcome, and that's what I back in. Missions are a shameful part of, white history. I'm very aware of the sensitivities for the people and for all First Nations people who've got an historical connection to any mission, including Deebing Creek.
There have been claims of possible human remains being found on the old mission site with undocumented graves, some distance from the protected cemetery. Have these been ruled in or out, these claims of human remains found elsewhere?
Well, to date, they've been ruled out. And the experts are involved in this. I'm satisfied, as are those lawful native title claimants that I work with, that the investigations have determined that to date there have not been human remains found.
So what happens next? Are we at an impasse?
No, I don't think so. I think this group that are formed are working with the developers on the land as we speak, and I believe that those conversations will continue. My door is open. I'm very committed to healing the sins of our past, and I want to work with the YUP and with the state and federal government, and as well as the Ipswich City Council going forward. As I have said, on many occasions, the YUP have got my full support.
Population growth in Ipswich is putting pressure on all manner of services, including schools, and another 2 new primary schools opened this week, Ripley Central in your electorate and Woogaroo Creek in Lance McCallum's electorate. Have you had a chance to visit Ripley Central yet?
Yeah, well, I've been working with the principal who was appointed last year on the planning, on the rolling out, meeting with the new families. We've had a couple of meetings. It's been terrific. I've left her alone in this first week, and I think she's quite grateful for that. But we've been chatting on the phone this week just to make sure everything's going smoothly. And she is just overwhelmed with how well everyone's working together. As residents may know, the school's not quite finished construction yet. I'm actually just so relieved that they were able to open up their doors, at the beginning of the school year, because with the weather we had last year and the, construction difficulties that everyone was experiencing, I was a little bit nervous about, how we'd go. But, there's 7 classrooms, there's 157 kids at the school. There's some great staff working there. I think it's got an amazing feel about it. And a lot of that really does come down to the work that the principal has done in the lead up, forging relationships with the community.
Staying in Ripley Valley, what is happening with the new satellite hospital?
Yeah, so we committed $40 million, as people know, just before the last state election in 2020. It's one of 7 satellite hospitals that we're delivering across southeast Queensland alone, and $84.5 million for this satellite hospital. So we're going to see 90 new beds at that facility as well. It's due to open late this year. So construction's commenced out there, and it's due to open late this year.
And what level of service will it offer, Jennifer Howard?
Yeah, so the satellite hospital is tailored to the needs of each community. So they're all, each satellite hospital will have a different iteration. But out here, I believe the plans are to include ambulatory and low acuity day therapy services. Sorry, it was hard to say, acuity. So we'll see things like renal dialysis and chemotherapy, complex wound management, urgent care for sort of minor injury and illness, if that makes sense.
So emergency will only be at Ipswich General?
Well, the lower, emergency, high acuity emergencies will occur at the Ipswich Hospital. But as I've said, we will see some sort of urgent care for minor injury and illnesses take place at the satellite hospital.
Another issue many of us experience now that school's back, more so, traffic congestion in Ipswich Central and North Ipswich across David Trumpy Bridge. I was caught in it myself earlier this week. Where do you stand on support for a second bridge, and particularly the proposed Norman Street Bridge, and why haven't we seen any action yet in your opinion?
Yeah, you're correct, Alan. There's a massive population growth occurring, and we know that that's going to increase even further. Ipswich people know I've been a strong advocate for a second river crossing down the track. The data doesn't represent as great a need as in other areas at the moment, but that won't stop me from continuing to fight for this bridge. This is a massive project that's going to require federal government support as well as council and state government support. So, we need all the players to be at the table, and I'll continue fighting for that.
So is there any formula being set on who should pay their share and how, what percentage?
Well, we've seen, the federal government step up to fund, up to 80% of some roads that, major roads and highways around the area. They put in 50% in the last section of the Ipswich motorway upgrade, 50-50. So, those conversations would occur at, a high level, departmental level, but we do need all those players at the table.
Jennifer Howard, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for speaking with Ipswich Today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Ipswich Today is supported by Kinetics, people-powered web hosting trusted by Australian businesses since 1999. This podcast is also listener-supported. Please make a once-only gift or regular donation to help keep it online. Just go to ipswichtoday.com.au and click the donate button on the homepage to make a payment through PayPal. Follow and stream this podcast from your favourite app, including iHeartRadio and Amazon Music, or play Ipswich Today on smart speakers. Music is supplied by Purple Planet Music. This is Alan Roebuck. Thank you for listening.